Can the Big 12 capitalize off Clemson suing the ACC? Clemson and Florida State both intend to leave the conference. They're going to leave the conference. I'll read it to you one more time. The quote here from the Tampa Bay Times is Clemson in the lawsuit says, the only games subject to the ESPN deal are ones that involve ACC teams, not games played if and when Clemson is no longer an ACC member. If and when is right there. That's what it is. They're leaving. What can the Big 12 do to capitalize off of that? Clemson has a suitor. Their valuation is great. They are a rich school. Conferences want them. It's not going to be the Big 12 that gets Clemson. Part of that is frustrating for me. And here is why. If Louisville comes to the Big 12, which I think is a legitimate path here, I could see Virginia Tech also being there as we've slowly waded through this. Their footprint doesn't seem to be as extreme as North Carolina or especially Clemson and Florida State. But let's circle Louisville for now. If Louisville goes on a 10-year stretch where they win 2 national championships, if Louisville does what Clemson has done the last 10 years, and Louisville's a Big 12 program, they become what Clemson is. I can't say it enough. 15 years ago, we just didn't care that much about Clemson. We didn't. And right now, from an athletic revenue standpoint, you might not think of Louisville as a juggernaut, but they can be. What could Pitt be? A market standpoint, Louisville, 1.5 million people. Pitt, oh my gosh, they have the whole Steelers there, one of the greatest brands in all of professional sports. I was walking through a mall in Georgia the other day, Steelers jerseys everywhere. Let's go to Pittsburgh. Let's go to Louisville. Let's go to North Carolina. If UNC somehow in this deal, if that footprint or Virginia's footprint is left off the table and the Big 12 can strike, Virginia Tech has another very good athletic program. Their university as a whole, a bit in shambles. Athletically, if they have a 10-year stretch like Clemson, which 10, 15 years ago, they weren't even comparable. Virginia Tech was way better than Clemson. If they have a 10-year stretch like Dabo Swinney has had, Virginia Tech becomes a power, Louisville becomes a power, Pitt becomes a power. And then a UNC with a Jordan brand, that is what the Big 12 is looking at here. When Brett Yormark said a week ago, hey, can we add a look-in? He was fighting for a look-in clause in the college football playoff. In 2028, can we reevaluate all the conferences? And if we've expanded, if we've realigned, and we have better teams and a more profitable approach, if we can bring you more money to the CFP, you will give us that more money. CFP said yes immediately. The SEC and the Big Ten says we can take advantage of the look-in, but the Big 12 isn't going to stop. It doesn't mean the Big 12 is going to stop. Whatever the SEC finds profitable, they're going to do. If that's adding Clemson, they're going to add Clemson, and that's going to create a bigger gap between the SEC and the Big 12. But it's going to create a bigger gap between the SEC and the Big 10 as well. And what the Big 12 can do is rely on 2 things. The first is the ability to expand with mid-level ACC teams, mid to upper-level ACC teams, even like possibly Miami, and if not Miami, Louisville, Pitt, Virginia Tech, NC State. Those squads can anchor the Big 12 and make it a conference that when the ACC is gone can pull more revenue in 2028 in the look-in clause. And there are 3 big leagues, the SEC, the Big 10, and the Big 12. That's what I predict is going to happen. The second thing that bodes well for your conference, if you are the Big 12, is there is no dead weight. Look at schools that you've just added, like Central Florida, UCF, and what they can do in Orlando if they have 10 years and a couple national championships. Talk about teams that could become a Clemson, that could win their way to college football prominence. Deion Sanders in Colorado, a money machine, a TV machine just came to your league. Utah, back-to-back Pac-12 championships. The Arizona footprint that you just got with both of those schools. Talk about BYU, a flagship university for the fastest growing faith in the world. And you're going to tell me that conference is going to die? There are pieces, new pieces that aren't just, we had to backfill. The ACC backfilled with Cal, Stanford, and SMU. Those were additions to just try to keep some contracts in place. The Big 12 has made additions to strengthen the league. And by 2028, if you've added a Louisville, if you've added a Pitt or a Miami or an NC State or Virginia Tech, that's how this conference stays alive. The complete nature of this league is what's going to help save it, because you go to the Big 10 and you see Northwestern. Ooh. And you see Purdue. Ooh. And you go to the ACC and you see Syracuse, and Boston College and Wake Forest, and they're fighting. You go to the SEC and you see, hey, wait a second, what's Vanderbilt doing here athletically? And then you go and you look around and you go, oh, wait a second. By revenue standards, Mississippi State and South Carolina are, in essence, Big 12 schools. That, buddy, that's what keeps the Big 12 alive. That's what gives me hope moving forward. The Big 12 won't die. I wrote it today. I wrote today in a message that I sent to a bunch of Big 12 buddies of mine. Worst case scenario, the Big 12 is buried too far behind by 2028. If that is the case, the conference dies. You could argue that it's the case right now, no matter what, because the Big 12 is so far behind in revenue numbers because of the college football playoff, so far behind the SEC and the Big 10. But the best case scenario that I understand is the depth of this league, the idea that there are sleeping giants in the Big 12, that there are sleeping Clemsons in the Big 12, and that this league could go out and get Louisville, that this league could go out and get NC State, Virginia Tech. That is what gives me hope. If we look back in 2028 and we go, there are three major conferences. The SEC and the Big 10 still make more money. But by gosh, these Big 12 teams at the top have won enough, have created big enough brands that this conference is valuable. And your contract through 2031 with ESPN can be renewed for even more money. And your college football playoff revenue share can be renewed in 2028 for even more money because the conference got better. That's what this league keeps doing. We're not backfilling because we have to add teams. The ACC did that. The Pac-12 couldn't do that. Those two conferences will fall apart, have fallen apart. The Big 12 lives. That's it. There's your good news today. Clemson leaving the ACC, Florida State leaving the ACC. Those two squads are not going to the Big 12, but somebody else is that's going to keep this league not just afloat, but keep them profitable, even more profitable by 2028. And that's all we need. This has been Always Will Be. Thanks for following along. Let's do more of it tomorrow. Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.